It was a dismal February morning in 1888. Eager for a cloudless sky, eager to see a brilliant sun, eager to establish his studio of the future, waited alone at the Gare de Lyon for a southbound train. He sits by the window, and as the train moves out, faces, without realizing it, his hardest and greatest days. He has 2.5 years to live.
I always remember the emotions which the trip from Paris to Arles evoked. How I kept watching to see if I had already reached Japan. Childish, isn't it?
And so Vincent came at last to the town of Arles. Once settled, not far from town, over a canal of the Rhone, a bridge reminds him of his native Holland. But soon these almond trees begin to flower, and he falls completely under their spell.
I'm using up a tremendous lot of colors and canvases. My brush stroke has no system at all. I hit the canvas with irregular touches of the brush, which I leave as they are. I must warn you, everyone will think I work too fast. You can reply that they looked at it too quickly. Oh, I shall be all in when the orchards are over.
Often, while all in, he would return to his cafe and sit outside over a cup of coffee, and sometimes see a face he liked sitting close by and get its owner to exchange the cafe chair for this one in his studio, recently found again. La Mousme, for instance.
A mousme is a Japanese girl, Provençal in this case, 12 to 14 years old. It took me a whole week. That makes 2 portraits, her and the Zouave, a boy with a small face, a bull neck, and the eye of a tiger.
And he painted still another Zouave, one who became a good friend of his, Second Lieutenant Millier.
I give him drawing lessons, and he is beginning to make drawings. By God, I've seen worse.
Together they walked the countryside, climbed the stony crags of Montmajour. Not only climbed, but sketched them. And from this height, they could look out over the checkered plain below.
The fascination these huge plains have for me is very strong. The flat landscape is as infinite as the sea. My dear Theo, I am at last writing to you from Saint-Marie. The Mediterranean has the colors of mackerel, changeable, I mean. On the flat, sandy beach, little boats, so pretty in shape and color that they make one think of flowers.
Back in Arles, among postmen such as this, Vincent made a real friend, Postman Roulin.
His wife had just had a child, and the fellow was aglow with satisfaction. A Socratic type, nonetheless Socratic for being somewhat addicted to liquor and having a high color as a result. I painted the wife in such a way that a sailor at sea would imagine when he thinks of his wife ashore.
He never forgot his dream of a community of artists and of the man to head it.
What is Gauguin going to do? Up to now, loneliness has not worried me much because I have found the brighter sun and its effect on nature so absorbing. My whole mind is set on Gauguin.
He set up his easel under a gas jet to record the magic of starry nights.
Looking at the stars always makes me dream, as simply as I dream over the black dots representing towns and villages on a map.
Stand for a moment, if you will, here in the Place de Forum of Arles today. You're looking at the place where Van Gogh's home stood until it was obliterated by a bomb in World War II. This is how it looked then.
I have just rented a 4-room house here in Arles. I want to make it really an artist's house. The house on the left is pink with green shutters. That is the restaurant where I go for dinner every day.
Suddenly, unexpectedly, Theo sells a painting of Gauguin's, making it possible for him to come.
Now that I hope to live with Gauguin in a studio of our own, I am painting with the enthusiasm of a Marseillais eating bouillabaisse. Big sunflowers for decoration. I want nothing but big flowers. I have also done a canvas of my bedroom. I wanted to express an absolute restfulness, looking at the picture or to rest the brain. My portrait, which I am sending to Gauguin, is all ash-colored. I've tried to convey not only myself, but an impressionist in general. A simple bonze worshiping the eternal Buddha. Only I've made the eyes slightly slanting, like the Japanese. Oh, my whole mind is set on Gauguin now.
Early in the morning of the 20th of October, 1888, Paul Gauguin rapped on the door of the Yellow House. Vincent wired his brother.
Gauguin has arrived in good health.
They walked through the little town to familiarize Gauguin with it and Vincent with him.
He is very interesting as a man. I'm sure we'll do loads of things. Gauguin and I are going to have our dinner at home today. I must tell you, he knows how to cook perfectly.
In time, they paused here to paint Les Alicants. As time went on, occasionally, if their budget permitted it, they visited the brothels together. And Vincent observed his attitude slowly changing.
With Gauguin, blood and sex prevail over ambition. Our arguments are very electric. Sometimes we come out of them with our heads as exhausted as a used electric battery.
His thoughts returned to his mother in the garden of his home in Eton. He wrote again of the growing strain between Gauguin and himself.
I think myself that Gauguin is a little out of sorts with the good town of Arles, the little yellow house, and especially with me.
As Vincent awaited Gauguin's decision to stay or to leave destroying all he dreamt of, Gauguin painted him at work. Vincent's curious comment.
It is certainly I, but I gone mad.
He in turn painted the chairs they used. His, Gauguin's, admitting later the foreboding in his heart.
I tried to paint his empty place.
Thus, what seemed bound to happen happened Christmas Eve on a dark street like this, according to Gauguin's memoirs written 15 years later. While on a stroll after dinner, he heard a step behind and turned to discover Vincent about to leap upon him with an open razor. Withering him with a word and a look, he sent Vincent on home and himself thought it best to stay that night in a hotel. Vincent, it is said, alone, assailed by hallucinations, cut off the lobe of his ear. And then, as the local newspaper reported it next day, last Sunday night at 11:30, a painter named Vincent Van Gogh, a native of Holland, appeared at number 1, asked for a girl named Rachel, and handed her his ear with these words, "Keep this object carefully." The police, informed of these happenings, attributed them to an unfortunate maniac. Next morning, in the bedroom he painted to symbolize peacefulness, Gauguin and the police found Vincent almost dead from loss of blood. Gauguin left word that he had departed for Paris, and while they took Vincent to the hospital, telegraphed Theo to come at once to the Yellow House. The hospital is still there in Arles, where for 3 long days Vincent Van Gogh lay unconscious, under the care of Dr. Ray, whom he painted thus later. Afterwards, looking into his mirror with palette in hand again,
I have no illusions about myself anymore. I shall do everything the doctor says. But as for considering myself completely sane, we must not do it.
he was taken back to the hospital again, and ultimately, upon a petition of his neighbors, confined to this cell.
My dear brother, I write you not as a madman, but as the brother you know. Here I am, shut up in a cell, under lock and key, and with keepers. What a staggering blow to find so many people cowardly enough to join against one man, and that man ill.
Realizing his inability to look after himself any longer, he voluntarily seeks admission to a sanitarium at nearby Saint-Rémy and is accepted. This is Saint-Rémy. Saint-Rémy, whose nuns accepted Vincent as a strange patient.
I think I have done well to come here. What matters is that one should learn to want to go on living. I have a little room. Through the iron-barred window, I see a square field of wheat in an enclosure, above which I see the morning sun rise in all its glory. The poor souls here do absolutely nothing, not a book, nothing to distract them. If someone has an attack, the others look after him. I take the baths twice a week now, stay in for 2 hours.
After a month, Vincent was permitted to work beyond the garden of the asylum, a guard accompanying him.
The cypresses are always occupying my thoughts. It astonishes me that they have not been done as I see them.
But peace was not long with him. One day, on a trip to paint a nearby quarry, after securing his easel amid the rocks to support it against the wind, as he began to work on his painting,
a new attack came on me in the fields while I was painting. But I finished in spite of it.
It was a long, tortured way from the quarry to his cell. For 6 weeks, Vincent did not dare leave the room. He painted what he could see from his window.
I see in this reaper the image of death, in the sense that humanity might be the wheat he is reaping. Do you know what I think? It is the same with people as with wheat. In the end, you are ground between millstones to become bread.
Then again, suddenly, unexpectedly,
we can do nothing. Now I almost give up all hope, abandon it altogether.
but the days of blackout give way before the spring to a kind of tranquility. And during that lull, he makes the difficult decision to leave Saint-Rémy.
My surroundings are beginning to weigh on me. I've been here more than a year. I must make a change.
He rejects firmly the suggestion that he be accompanied.
I've tried to be patient. I've done no one any harm. Is it fair to be accompanied like a dangerous beast?
In his office, the director of the hospital closes his records on Vincent Van Gogh. May 16th, 1890. The patient has had several attacks during his stay. He was subjected to frightful terrors and tried several times to poison himself. In between, the patient was quiet and devoted to his painting. Today, he is asking for his release. Observations: cured. Vincent Van Gogh has 2.5 months to live. And so he comes to the last summer of his life. Here in Auvers, not far from Paris, placed by Theo under the friendly eye of Dr. Paul Ferdinand Gachet, an amateur artist.
I have seen Dr. Gachet, who gives me the impression of being rather eccentric. He certainly seems to be suffering at least as seriously as I. He piloted me to an inn where they ask 6 francs a day. All by myself, I found one where I shall pay 3.50 a day. Auvers is beautiful. Dr. Gachet says I must work boldly on and not think of what went wrong with me.
He looks at this church again and paints it. He poses the 16-year-old daughter of his innkeeper, Ravoux, who, discovered still living today in Dieppe, once again took the pose she took for him 70 years ago. He turns to these wheat fields after a sudden anguished trip to Paris upon news that Theo is beset with troubles, his child ill, his wife worried.
In these vast fields of wheat under troubled skies, I did not need to go out of my way to express sadness and extreme loneliness. They will tell you what I cannot say in words.
And then one day, on the 27th of July, 1890, Vincent Van Gogh sat down in this room and wrote his last letter. Somewhere he found or borrowed a gun. Rising, he left Ravoux's cafe. Walking through the Sunday empty streets of Auvers, walking toward the fields he loved, walking, his unmailed last letter in his pocket.
My dear brother, there are many things I should like to write you about, but I feel it is useless. I tell you again that I shall always consider you to be something more than a simple dealer in Corot's, that through my mediation you have your part in the actual production of some canvases, which will retain their calm, even in catastrophe. Well, my own work I am risking my life for it, and my reason has half floundered because of it. That's all right. But what's the use?
The bullet entered his body somewhere below the heart. And as the sun he so loved rushed, as if it did not wish to look upon the scene, quickly below the horizon, painfully he picked himself up from the ground. He placed his hands over his wound and staggered, falling time and again toward home. Reaching the inn, he entered the dining room and crossed it, speaking to no one. He mounted these stairs. Entered this room and threw himself on his bed. Perhaps his groans summoned the innkeeper, reel2. When he entered the room and saw what he saw and heard Vincent say,
I tried to kill myself, but missed.
reel2 rushed to call Dr. Gachet, who hastily arrived with his 17-year-old son, this man, one of the two last surviving persons to see Van Gogh alive. Monsieur Gachet still lives there in Auvers, writing his memories of Vincent Van Gogh. He remembers much. He remembers how his father examined the wound, how extraction seemed impossible, how he dressed it, how he left him on guard as he hastened to send word to Theo in Paris. Remembers Theo next day, sobbing as he entered the room, and Vincent saying,
"Do not cry. I did it for the good of everybody."
Remembers how later his father made this sketch of Vincent on his deathbed. All day long, Theo sat with his brother, who to him seemed determined not to recover. At 1:30 a.m. on July 29th, 1890, at the age of 37 years and 4 months, after he spoke these words,
"I wish I could go home now."
life left Vincent Van Gogh.
Is the whole of life visible to us? Why shouldn't the shining dots of the sky be as accessible as the black dots on the map of France? Just as we take the train to get to Rouen, we take death to reach a star. Are we not entitled to hope that there may possibly be other and better conditions for painting than here on Earth?
It was described as an afternoon like this, the 3 o'clock of the next day, when his coffin, which throughout the morning had been covered by yellow flowers, his favorite color, and surrounded by his paintings, entered this cemetery. Following in the heat his friends from Paris, Pizarro, Bernard, Tanguy, and of course Gachet and Theo. Some 800 paintings and 800 drawings since he began as an artist 10 years before, selling only one in his lifetime, and that for a trifling sum. His friends delivered him to the waiting ground to find the peace he was unable to find here on Earth. Less than 6 months after, Theo, unable to survive the shock, sick and sense-shattered, followed him to the grave and was moved some years later, here, that the brothers might be united in death as they were in life. Thus ends the story of Vincent Van Gogh, painter, who gave the world that scorned him a priceless heritage of beauty because he lived what he believed.
Man is not on this earth merely to be happy. He is there to realize great things for humanity. Man is not on this earth merely to be happy, nor even to be simply honest. He is there to realize great things for humanity, to attain nobility, and to surmount the vulgarity in which the existence of all individuals drags on.
So wrote one of the most extraordinary geniuses the centuries have ever known, Vincent Van Gogh, whose eyes gave humanity a new vision of the world. On this, the 80th anniversary of his first paintings, thanks to the cooperation of his nephew and individuals and museums throughout Europe and America, NBC News, having retraced the fabric of Van Gogh's life on the scene in Holland, England, Belgium, and France, now in Van Gogh's own words, and through his drawings and canvases filmed from the originals, many of them for the first time in color, is enabled to bring you his inspiring self-portraits.